Captain Una stared at the screen in front of her. The blue and green planet below looked peaceful from orbit. Her ship, the Infinite Regard, had been watching this world for 3 months now. It was her job to make sure the new human settlements followed the rules. Most days nothing interesting happened. Today was different. "Captain, we have a problem," Day said. The young science officer looked worried. His fingers moved quickly across his control panel. "I'm detecting a human signature in the northern wilderness. Sector 7, Una frowned. That's outside the safe zones. Are you sure?" "Yes, Captain. One human, alone, about 200 kilometers from the nearest approved settlement." Bora, the security chief, stepped forward. Her face was hard. "That's a violation. We need to evacuate them immediately." Una nodded slowly. "Show me." The main screen changed. It showed a small wooden cabin next to a stream. Trees surrounded it on all sides. Smoke rose from a chimney. It looked like something from an old Earth story. "Zoom in," Una ordered. The image grew larger. She could see a garden beside the cabin. Someone had built a fence around it. Tools leaned against the wall. A door faced east toward the rising sun. "Life signs?" Una asked. Day worked his controls. "One human inside the cabin, male, adult, but Captain..." He stopped talking. "What is it?" "There's something else. Something big, moving in the forest around the cabin." Bora's hand went to her weapon. "How big?" 6 meters long. Maybe more. The scanner identifies it as a render." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew about renders. They were the apex predators of this planet. Armored skin that could stop most weapons. Claws that could tear through metal. Intelligence that made them hunt in packs. The settlers had been warned to stay far away from render territory. A render that close to a human? Una felt cold. "Why hasn't it attacked?" "Unknown, Captain. Show me thermal imaging." The screen changed again. Now it showed heat signatures. The human inside the cabin glowed bright red and orange. Outside, moving through the trees, was another shape. Bigger, much bigger. It circled the cabin slowly. "It's stalking him," Bora said. "We need to evacuate now, before it's too late." Una watched the screen. Something felt wrong. "Wait, how long has it been there?" Day checked his data. "The render? According to our logs, 4 days. 4 days?" Bora looked shocked. "That's impossible. Renders attack their prey within hours." "I'm telling you what the data shows." Una leaned forward. "Keep watching. I want to know what happens." They watched for 2 hours. The sun set on the planet below. The human inside the cabin moved around doing normal things, cooking, cleaning. He never seemed afraid. The render outside continued its slow circle. Then as darkness fell completely, the render stopped circling. It moved directly toward the cabin door. "Here it comes," Bora whispered. The thermal image showed the massive predator approaching. Its body heat painted it like a demon on the screen. It reached the door, stopped, waited. The door opened. Everyone on the bridge held their breath. The human stood in the doorway. He was tall with dark hair. He wore simple clothes. In his hands he carried something. The thermal scanner showed it was warm. Food, maybe. The human said something. They couldn't hear the words from orbit, but they could see him speaking. Then he did something that made no sense. He smiled. The render moved closer. Its massive head, bigger than the human's entire chest, came within centimeters of the man's face. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the human reached out and touched the render's armored head. "What is he doing?" Day's voice was barely a whisper. The human placed the food on the ground. The render lowered its head and began to eat. Slowly, calmly. Like this happened every day. The human stood there, watching. He wasn't running. He wasn't afraid. He just waited until the render finished eating. Then the human turned and walked back into his cabin. And the render followed him inside. "Did that just happen?" Bora asked. "Did a human just invite a render into his home?" Una couldn't speak. In 20 years of service, she had never seen anything like this. Day worked his controls frantically. "I'm tracking them both. The human is moving to the back of the cabin. The render is... It's lying down by the door." "By the door?" Una finally found her voice. "Yes, Captain. And it's facing outward, away from the human." They watched the thermal signatures for the rest of the night. The human lay in what must have been a bed. He didn't move much. He slept. The render stayed by the door. It didn't sleep. Its head moved occasionally. scanning the darkness outside. Once, something else approached the cabin. Something smaller. The render's heat signature changed, became brighter. Aggressive. The other creature ran away. The render settled back down, still facing the door, still protecting. Morning came. The human woke up and opened the door. The render went outside. The human followed with more food. He placed it on the ground again. The render ate again. Then the human did something even stranger. He sat down next to the render and began checking its body. His hands moved over the creature's armored skin, looking for something. He found a spot on the render's foreleg. A wound, maybe. The human went back inside and returned with medical supplies. He treated the render's wound. The massive predator, the thing that could kill him with one swipe of its claws, sat still and let the human help it. "Captain," Day said quietly. "What are we looking at?" Yuna didn't answer right away. She watched the human finish his work. She watched him pat the render's shoulder like someone might pat a friend. She watched the render's body language change, become relaxed, become almost gentle. "I don't know," she finally said, "but we're going to find out. Day, start continuous monitoring. I want every moment recorded. Bora, hold the evacuation order." "Captain, protocol says." "I know what protocol says. But protocol doesn't explain this. Give me 72 hours. If I can't understand what's happening by then, we'll evacuate him." Bora didn't look happy, but she nodded. Yuna looked back at the screen. The human was walking toward his garden now. The render followed a few steps behind, then settled in the shade of a large tree. It watched the human work. It watched the forest around them. It watched everything except the human's back. "Sir," Day said, "I'm running a scan of our database, looking for any similar cases." "And?" "Nothing, Captain. This has never been recorded before. Not with renders. Not with any apex predator species. The human should be dead. But he's not," Yuna said. "He's gardening. And that thing is guarding him while he does it." She stood up from her command chair and walked closer to the screen. The image showed the human pulling weeds from his garden. The render's head turned occasionally, checking the tree line, checking the sky, always alert, always watching, never watching the human. "What's his name?" Yuna asked. Day searched the records. "Hyun, no family name listed. Age 34, former wilderness rescue specialist. He filed a settlement claim 6 months ago. We approved it because it was technically within the allowed zone. But he moved, built this cabin in render territory. Why would anyone do that? The records don't say." Yuna watched the screen for a long time. The sun moved across the sky on the planet below. The human worked. The render guarded. Everything looked wrong, yet somehow it looked right. "Keep watching," she said. "I want to know everything. How they communicate. What they do. Why that render hasn't killed him. Everything." "Yes, Captain." Yuna returned to her chair. She had a feeling that the next few days would change everything they thought they knew about humans, and about the predators that should have eaten them. On the screen, the human called out. The render's head lifted. The human gestured toward the cabin. "Time for dinner, maybe?" The render stood and followed the human inside, and once again, it lay down by the door facing outward, protecting the human who should have been its prey. Yuna leaned back and whispered, "What are you, Hyun? And how did you do this?" The stars gave no answer, but somewhere below in a small cabin in the wilderness, a human slept peacefully beside a monster that had chosen to be his guardian. 2 weeks had passed since they first discovered Hyun and his impossible companion. The crew of the Infinite Regard had watched every moment. They had filled data files with observations. They had argued about what it all meant, and they still didn't understand. Tae, the communications officer, brought his findings to the morning briefing. He looked tired. He had been searching records all night. "I found Hyun's history," Tae said. He put the information on the main screen. 6 years ago, he was part of a rescue team on planet Karis 9. There was an evacuation. Something went wrong. His entire team died. 23 people. He was the only survivor. Yuna studied the report. Trauma like that changes a person. There's more. After that, he requested assignments on frontier worlds. Always alone. Always in dangerous territories. It's like he's looking for something. Or running from something, Bora added. Jiwon, the medical officer, spoke up. She had been quiet for most of the briefings. "I have a theory. What if this isn't about bonding? What if it's about survival?" "Explain," Yuna said. "Think about it." A human alone in render territory shouldn't survive. But what if Hyun made a deal? Food for protection. The render gets easy meals. Hyun gets a guard. Dae shook his head. I thought that too. But the data doesn't support it. Watch this. He played a recording from 3 days ago. The thermal imaging showed Hyun and the render outside the cabin. Another render approached from the west. A smaller one. This smaller render came close to the cabin, Dae explained. It was young. Probably looking for territory. Watch what happens. On the screen, the large render moved to block the smaller one, but it didn't attack immediately. Instead, it made a sound. They couldn't hear it from orbit, but they could see the vibration in the thermal patterns. A warning. The smaller render didn't leave. It moved closer. That's when Hyun stepped out of the cabin. He was unarmed. He walked toward the two renders like he was walking to meet a friend. He's insane, Bora muttered. Hyun positioned himself between the two creatures. He raised his hands, he spoke. Again, they couldn't hear the words, but they could see his body language, calm, controlled, confident. The large render moved closer to Hyun, not threatening, protective. Its body positioned to shield the human if needed. The smaller render watched for a long moment. Then it backed away. Slowly. It turned and disappeared into the forest. Hyun reached out and touched the large render's shoulder. Then they both went back into the cabin. That's not a deal, Dae said. That's not survival instinct. That's something else. Trust, Yuna said quietly. The render trusts him, and he trusts the render. Jiwon frowned. But how? Renders don't trust. They hunt, they kill, they establish territory. They don't protect other species. Humans do, Tae said. I've been reading about Earth's history. Thousands of years ago, they lived with creatures called wolves, wild predators. They hunted in packs. They killed prey much larger than themselves. But humans befriended them, domesticated them, turned them into dogs. Dogs? Bora looked confused. Companions, protectors, partners, humans lived with these predators in their homes. Let them sleep beside their children. And the wolves chose to stay. They became loyal. They protected humans instead of hunting them. The bridge was quiet as everyone thought about this. Are you saying Hyun is domesticating a render? Yuna asked. I'm saying humans have done it before. Maybe they can do it again. Before anyone could respond, Dae's console beeped urgently. Captain, we have a situation. Multiple life signs approaching Hyun's location. Large ones. The main screen shifted to show the thermal imaging. 3 renders were moving through the forest. They were coming from the north, heading directly toward the cabin. Distance? Yuna demanded. 2 kilometers. They'll reach the cabin in 20 minutes. Why are they moving together? Jiwon asked. I thought renders were territorial. They don't share space. They don't, Dae said, unless they're hunting something big. Or unless what? Unless they're challenging another render for territory. Bora stood up. We need to evacuate him now. He can't survive 3 renders. Wait, Yuna said. Let's see what happens. We're recording everything. If it goes wrong, we'll beam him up. That might be too late. I know, but I need to understand this. Dae, can we get audio? I can try. We're at the edge of our range, but... He worked his controls. Got it. Low quality, but we'll hear something. The speakers crackled to life. They could hear the wind in the trees. Birds making sounds they had never heard before. And then footsteps. The screen showed Hyun stepping out of his cabin. The large render came out behind him. Hyun looked toward the north. He couldn't see the approaching renders yet, but somehow he knew they were coming. Dubu, Hyun said. His voice was clear and calm. We have visitors. He named it, Tae whispered. He named the render. Hyun walked away from the cabin. Dubu followed. They stopped at a cleared area about 30 meters from the door. Hyun said something else, too quiet to hear. Dubu moved to his left side. Still close, still protective. They waited. The 3 renders emerged from the forest. They were smaller than Dubu, but not by much. They moved with the confidence of hunters. They saw Hyun and Dubu and stopped. This is bad, Bora said. 3 against 1. Even if Dubu fights, he can't win. But Dubu wasn't preparing to fight. He was standing still, watching, waiting for something. One of the 3 renders moved forward. It made a sound. A deep rumble that made the speakers vibrate. A challenge. Hyun didn't move. He stood next to Dubu and waited. The challenging render came closer. Its body language was aggressive. Its claws extended. "Beam him up," Bora said. "Now, Captain." "Not yet." The render was 10 meters away. Then 5, Hyun raised his hand. "That's close enough," he said. His voice was firm but not loud. Not threatening, just certain. The render stopped. Everyone on the bridge held their breath. Hyun took one step forward. Just one. He positioned himself slightly in front of Dubu now. "This is my home," Hyun said. "You're not welcome here." The render tilted its massive head. It was studying him. "Trying to understand, but I know you're hungry," Hyun continued. "I know you're looking for territory. So here's what I offer. There's a dead tree 1 kilometer west. Large prey animals gather there to eat the fungus that grows on it. You can hunt there. That can be your territory. But this area belongs to us." The render didn't move. "It doesn't understand him," Ji-won said. "It's just an animal." But Dae was looking at something else on his screen. The render's heart rate is changing. It's listening. Hyun slowly reached into his pocket. Every person on the bridge tensed. But Hyun didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out something wrapped in cloth. He unwrapped it. Meat. He held it out. "A gift," Hyun said. "To show I mean no harm. Take it. Go west. Find good hunting." The render looked at the meat, then at Hyun, then at Dubu. Dubu hadn't moved. He wasn't aggressive. He was just present, supporting Hyun without threatening. The render took the meat. Gently. It backed away. Then it turned and walked into the forest. The other 2 renders followed. They were gone. Hyun stood there for a moment. Then his shoulders relaxed. He let out a long breath. "Good boy, Dubu," he said. He reached over and patted the massive render's armored head. "Good boy." They walked back to the cabin together. The bridge was silent for a long time. Finally, Tae spoke. "He didn't fight. He didn't run. He negotiated with an apex predator." "That's impossible," Bora said. But her voice had no strength in it. Yuna stood up. She walked to the main screen and stared at it. Hyun was back inside his cabin now. Dubu was lying by the door again. Everything looked normal, but nothing was normal. "Communications," Yuna said. "Contact Galactic Command. Send them everything we've recorded." "What should I tell them?" Tae asked. Yuna thought about it. "Tell them we've discovered something new about humans. Something important." "What have we discovered, Captain?" Yuna pointed at the screen. At the human and the render who had chosen not to fight. "We've discovered that humans don't just survive on dangerous worlds," she said. "They make the dangerous things choose to protect them. We've been watching this for 2 weeks and asking the wrong question. We kept asking how Hyun survived. But the real question is different." "What's the real question?" Dae asked. "How did Dubu know that protecting Hyun was better than eating him?" Nobody had an answer. On the planet below, night was falling. Hyun lay down to sleep. Dubu settled by the door, facing outward like always, watching, guarding, choosing to protect instead of hunt. And somewhere in the forest, 3 renders were traveling west. Toward a dead tree. Toward new territory. Because a human had offered them a choice, and they had taken it. Yuna returned to her command chair. "Continue monitoring. I want to know more." "For how long, Captain?" Bora asked. Yuna looked at the screen. "At the thermal signature of a human sleeping peacefully beside a monster. As long as it takes," she said. "Because I think we're watching something that will change how we understand humans forever." The stars continued their slow dance. The ship maintained its orbit. And below, in a small cabin in the wilderness, 2 unlikely companions rested together, the hunter and the human. The predator and the prey, the guardian and the guarded. And somehow, against all logic, it worked. The message from Galactic Command came 3 days later. Captain Yuna read it twice. Then she read it again. "They want him retrieved," she told her senior officers, "for quarantine and behavioral assessment. They think he might be compromised." "Compromised?" Dae looked confused. "They think something might be controlling him. Parasites, pheromones, some kind of mental influence. They don't believe a human would willingly live with a render." Bora nodded. "It makes sense." "We should bring him up." "No," Yuna said. "It doesn't make sense. We've been watching for 3 weeks. If he was being controlled, we'd see evidence. Strange behavior, confusion, fear. But Hyun shows none of that. He's calm, purposeful. He knows exactly what he's doing. Then why does he do it?" Ji-won asked. That's what we need to find out. And we can't do that from orbit. We need to go down there. The landing was smooth. Pilot Kyung set the small transport down 2 kilometers from Hyun's cabin. Far enough to be safe. Close enough to reach quickly if needed. Minji, the field researcher, checked her equipment. She was a xenoanthropologist. She studied how different species interacted. This was her specialty. Remember, she said to the security team, no aggressive movements. No weapons visible. We're here to observe and talk. Nothing else? We're here to extract a human from a predator, Bora corrected. If it attacks, we defend ourselves. It won't attack. You can't know that. Yes, I can. We've watched the recordings. Dubu only acts aggressive when Hyun is threatened. If we don't threaten Hyun, Dubu won't hurt us. They walked through the forest. It was beautiful. Tall trees with purple leaves, flowers that glowed softly in the shadows. The air smelled like rain and growing things. It also smelled like render. Day checked his scanner. We're entering marked territory. See those scratches on the trees? Those marks in the dirt? Dubu has claimed this entire area. How big? Kyung asked. About 5 square kilometers, with Hyun's cabin at the center. They walked carefully. Every sound made them jump. Every shadow might be a threat. Then they saw the cabin. It looked peaceful. Smoke came from the chimney. The garden was neat and full of growing vegetables. Tools leaned against the wall, clean and organized. Hyun was outside. He was working on something, building something from wood. He looked up when they approached. I was wondering when you'd come down, he said. He put down his tools and stood. You've been watching from orbit for 3 weeks. I could feel your scans. Minji stepped forward. My name is Minji. We're from the Galactic Survey. We need to talk with you. About Dubu. Yes, about your companion. Hyun smiled. He's not just a companion. He's family. As if summoned, Dubu appeared from behind the cabin. He was even more impressive on the ground than he had been on thermal imaging. 6 meters of armored muscle and deadly grace. His claws left deep marks in the soil as he walked. The security team raised their weapons. No, Minji said sharply. Lower them now. Dubu stopped. His massive head turned toward the weapons. His body tensed. Hyun stepped forward. He placed himself between the team and Dubu. He won't hurt you unless you hurt me. But those weapons make him nervous. Put them away. Bora kept her weapon up. Standard protocol will get you killed, Hyun said. His voice was still calm. Look at him. Really look. He's not hunting. He's protecting. There's a difference. Minji studied Dubu's posture. Hyun was right. The render wasn't preparing to attack. He was preparing to defend. Lower the weapons, she ordered. Slowly, reluctantly, the security team complied. Dubu relaxed slightly. He moved to Hyun's side. Close but not touching. Alert but not aggressive. Better, Hyun said. Would you like some tea? We can talk inside. Inside. Kyung looked at the cabin. With that thing? His name is Dubu, and yes, inside. He lives here too. They followed Hyun into the cabin. It was small but comfortable. A bed in one corner. A kitchen area. Shelves with books and supplies. And by the door, a large mat where Dubu clearly slept. Dubu entered last. He settled on his mat facing the door, just like they had seen in the recordings. Always watching, always guarding. Hyun made tea, real tea grown in his garden. He served it in simple cups. You've come to take me away, he said. It wasn't a question. Galactic Command is concerned, Minji said carefully. Living with a render is unprecedented. Dangerous, you mean? Yes, dangerous. Hyun sipped his tea. Tell me something. In all your watching, did you ever see Dubu threaten me? No, Minji admitted. Did you see him attack without cause? No. Did you see him hunt me, stalk me? Show any predatory behavior toward me at all? No, but that doesn't mean. It means exactly what it looks like, Hyun said. Dubu is my friend, my protector, my family. I trust him with my life, literally. Day spoke up. But how? How did this happen? Renders don't bond with other species. They barely tolerate their own kind. Hyun was quiet for a moment. He looked at Dubu. The massive render turned his head slightly. Their eyes met. Some kind of understanding passed between them. 6 months ago I came to this area, Hyun said. I wanted to be alone. I wanted to be somewhere dangerous. Somewhere that would challenge me every day. I was running from something. From memories, he paused. Minji waited patiently. I built this cabin, Hyun continued. I knew renders lived here. I knew it was dangerous. Part of me didn't care. Maybe part of me wanted the danger. What changed? Minji asked. Dubu found me. He was younger then, not fully grown. He watched me for days. I could feel him out there waiting. I thought he would attack. I was ready for it, but he didn't. No. One day I was working outside. I cut my hand on a tool. It was bleeding. I knew the smell would attract predators. I went inside and waited. Dubu came to the door. He could smell the blood. He could have broken in easily, but he just waited. Hyun smiled at the memory. I opened the door. I don't know why. Maybe I was tired of being afraid. Maybe I wanted it to be over. But when I looked at him, I didn't see a monster. I saw curiosity, intelligence. He wasn't looking at me like I was prey. He was looking at me like I was a puzzle. So you fed him, Day said. So I talked to him. I showed him my hand. The injury. I let him smell it. And then I closed the door. I didn't feed him. I didn't try to buy his loyalty. I just showed him I wasn't afraid. And he came back. Every day, he would sit outside, just watching. I started leaving the door open while I worked. He would lie in the sun, never threatening, never hunting, just being there. Minji was taking notes. When did you first touch him? 2 weeks later. He had an injury, a wound on his leg from another render. It was infected. He couldn't reach it to clean it. I could see he was in pain, so I brought medicine outside. I showed it to him. Then I approached, slowly, carefully. He let me treat the wound. That was the moment. Minji said softly, that was when he decided to trust you. Maybe, or maybe it was when I decided to trust him. Trust goes both ways. A sound came from outside, a rustling in the trees. Dubu's head lifted immediately. A low rumble came from his chest. It's okay, Hyun said. Just checking. Dubu stood and went to the door. He stepped outside, the team tensed. But Hyun remained calm. There's another one out there, a younger render. Dubu's been teaching him. Teaching him what? Bora asked. That humans aren't prey, that we can coexist. They heard sounds from outside. 2 different render voices, one deep and rumbling, one higher, younger. A conversation in a language they couldn't understand. After a moment, both sounds moved away. Dubu came back inside. He settled on his mat again. That's Minho, Hyun said. He's learning. It takes time. Minji looked at her notes. Then at Hyun, then at Dubu. I need to understand this. Really understand. How do you communicate with him? How do you know what he's thinking? The same way you'd communicate with anyone, Hyun said. I watch his body language. I listen to his sounds. I pay attention to his moods, and I respect his boundaries. It's not that different from understanding any person. You just have to care enough to try. But he's not a person. He's a predator. So are humans, Hyun said quietly. We're apex predators too. We hunted, we killed, we conquered. But we also loved. We protected. We formed bonds. That's what makes us human. Not our ability to destroy, but our ability to choose not to. He looked at Dubu again. Dubu had the same choice. He could have killed me, eaten me, taken my territory, but he chose something else. He chose companionship, protection, family. That choice makes him more than just a predator. It makes him a person in the ways that matter. The room was quiet. Outside, the sun was setting. The purple leaves of the trees glowed in the fading light. Minji made a decision. I need to send a report to Galactic Command. I need to tell them what I've seen. But I also need time to study this properly, to document it, to understand it. You want to stay? Hyun asked. Not here. We'll set up a research station nearby. We'll observe. We'll learn, and then we'll make a recommendation about whether you should stay or be evacuated. Hyun nodded slowly. How long? 30 days. And if your recommendation is that I leave? Minji looked at Dubu. The massive render was watching her with intelligent eyes, making his own assessment. Then we'll deal with that when it happens, she said. But Hyun, I believe you. I see what you've built here. It's extraordinary. It's impossible. And it's real. They left the cabin as darkness fell. Dubu walked them to the edge of his territory. He didn't follow further. He just watched until they disappeared in The research station was small but well-equipped. It sat 1 kilometer from Hyun's cabin, close enough to observe, far enough to give him space. For 2 weeks, the team studied everything. They recorded sounds. They analyzed behavior patterns. They documented every interaction between Hyun and Dubu. Somin, the behavioral analyst, had filled 3 data drives with notes. She sat at her console watching the day's recordings. "Look at this," she called to the others. Day 14 morning session. "Watch Hyun's hands." The screen showed Hyun standing outside his cabin. Dubu was beside him. Hyun made a gesture with his hand. A specific movement. Palm down, fingers pointing left. Dubu turned and walked left. "He's using hand signals," Day said. "Not just signals. A language, watch." Hyun made another gesture. Fist closed, then opened. Dubu stopped walking. He sat down. "Stay," Somin said. "That means stay." Hyun walked toward the forest. He stopped about 20 meters away. He turned back to Dubu. He made a different gesture, both hands moving toward himself. Dubu stood and walked to Hyun. "Come," Somin said. Simple commands. Like training a dog. But Dubu isn't a dog, Jiwon pointed out. He's an apex predator with a brain the size of my fist. How does he understand? The same way any intelligent being learns, Somin said. Repetition, consistency, and reward. Watch this part. When Dubu reached Hyun, the human placed his hand on Dubu's head. He stroked the armored plates gently. Dubu made a sound. A low rumble, not threatening. Almost like a purr. Positive reinforcement, Somin said. Hyun rewards desired behavior with physical affection. Dubu responds to it. He wants that approval. Hwan, the cultural officer, had been studying Earth's history. He brought his findings to the evening briefing. "I found something interesting," he said. He displayed images on the main screen. Ancient images from Earth. These are from 12,000 years ago. Humans and wolves. Living together. Hunting together. These wolves were wild, dangerous, but humans befriended them. He showed more images. Within a few thousand years, those wolves had changed. They became smaller, more docile. Their behavior changed. Their appearance changed. They became what humans needed them to be. Domestication, Minji said. Yes, but here's what's interesting. It wasn't one-sided. Humans changed too. They developed the ability to read animal body language better. They learned to communicate across species barriers. They evolved alongside their companions. He changed the image. It showed more animals, cats, horses, birds. Humans did this over and over. With dozens of species, they saw potential where others saw danger. They built bridges where others saw walls. It's what made them successful. Not their strength or their weapons. Their ability to turn enemies into allies. You think that's what Hyun is doing? Yuna asked. Domesticating renders? I think Hyun is doing what humans have always done. He's teaching Dubu that cooperation is better than conflict. And Dubu is teaching Hyun the same thing. Day pulled up a new recording. I want you to see something from yesterday. It's important. The screen showed Hyun working in his garden. Dubu was lying nearby watching. Then a third render appeared. Minho, the young one they had heard before. Minho approached slowly, cautiously. He was smaller than Dubu, barely 4 meters long. Still dangerous, but not fully grown. Hyun stood. He didn't run. He didn't reach for a weapon. He just stood and waited. Dubu made a sound. Not aggressive, informative. He was telling Minho something. Minho came closer. He stopped about 10 meters from Hyun. His body was tense. Ready to run or fight, Hyun sat down. He made himself smaller, less threatening. Minho took another step. Watch Dubu, Day said. Dubu hadn't moved, but his attention was divided. He was watching Minho, watching Hyun, ready to intervene if needed, but not interfering yet. Hyun pulled something from his pocket. Food. He placed it on the ground between himself and Minho. Minho stared at it. Then at Hyun. Then at Dubu. Dubu made another sound. Permission, maybe, or encouragement. Minho moved forward. Slowly, he reached the food. He ate it quickly, ready to run at any moment. When he finished, Hyun didn't move. He just sat there, calm, patient. After a long moment, Minho turned and walked away, but not far. He settled at the edge of the clearing, still watching, still learning. That's the 3rd time this week, Day said. Minho comes closer every day. Stays longer. Hyun is teaching him too. Or Dubu is teaching him, Somin suggested. Dubu is showing Minho that humans are safe, that they bring benefits, food, medicine, companionship. Minho is learning from observation. Jiwan looked troubled. But what does this mean? Is Hyun creating more bonded renders? Is this spreading? Would that be bad? Minji asked. I don't know. Change can be dangerous. What if this changes the whole render species? What if it disrupts the ecosystem? What if it makes them better? Hwan countered. What if cooperation makes them more successful than aggression? Before they could continue, Kyung's console beeped urgently. Captain, I'm picking up multiple render signals. Moving fast, heading toward Hyun's position. Everyone rushed to the monitors. How many? Yuna demanded. 5. No, 6. Large ones, adults, they're hunting. Hunting what? I don't know. But they're going to pass right through Hyun's territory. Ida, 3 minutes. Minji grabbed her communicator. Hyun, can you hear me? You need to get inside. Lock the doors. We're detecting... I know. Hyun's voice came through. He sounded calm. I can hear them. Then get to safety. I am safe. On the monitors, they could see Hyun standing outside his cabin. Dubu was beside him. Minho had appeared from the forest. He looked scared. The 6 renders emerged from the trees. They were huge, battle-scarred, moving in formation. Hunters. They stopped when they saw Hyun, Dubu, and Minho. The largest render, a female with a scar across her face, stepped forward. She made a sound, deep, challenging. They want his territory, Soman said. They're challenging Dubu's claim. 3 against 6, Bora calculated. This is bad, but Hyun didn't look worried. He stood straight. He faced the 6 renders without fear. He made a gesture. A new one they hadn't seen before. Dubu and Minho moved to flank him, one on each side. A united front, Hyun began to speak. His voice carried across the clearing. This is my territory, Dubu's territory. We don't want conflict, but we will defend our home. The scarred female tilted her head. Listening. You're hunting, Hyun continued. I understand. You need food. You need space. But you can't have this space. We're offering you a choice. Go around, find prey elsewhere, or fight. But if you fight, you'll lose. He's bluffing, Kyung said. 3 can't beat 6. Maybe he's not bluffing, Minji whispered. Hyun raised his hand. He made another gesture. From the forest behind him, 2 more shapes emerged. Renders, smaller ones, juveniles that Dubu had been teaching. They were scared, but they came to stand with Hyun anyway. 5 against 6 now. But it wasn't the numbers that mattered. It was what they represented. The 6 hunters were individuals, each looking for their own advantage, ready to fight but also ready to run if hurt. Hyun's group was different. They stood together, unified, willing to protect each other. The scarred female seemed to understand. She made a sound, not aggressive, questioning. Hyun pulled out a large piece of meat. He must have prepared it earlier. He placed it on the ground, a gift, he said, for peaceful passage. Take it, hunt elsewhere. Everyone survives today. The female looked at her companions. Some kind of decision was being made. Finally, she stepped forward. She took the meat. She made a sound to the others. They turned and left, not running, walking, dignified. They had made a choice. When they were gone, Hyun let out a long breath. His hands were shaking. He had been scared after all. Just not scared enough to run. Dubu pressed against his side, comfort, support. Minho and the other young renders gathered close. Family, Soman said softly. He's built a family. They watched as Hyun sat down. The renders settled around him, not threatening, protecting. All of them together. Minji turned to Yuna. Captain, I need to update my report to Galactic Command. What will you tell them? That we've been asking the wrong questions. We asked if a human could survive with a render. We asked if it was safe. We asked if Hyun was being controlled. And we should have been asking different questions. Can renders change? Can they learn cooperation? Can they choose loyalty over instinct? The answer is yes, but only because Hyun showed them how. Yuna thought about this. You think other humans could do this? I think humans have always done this. They just haven't tried with renders before. Hyun proved it's possible. Hwan added, Earth's history shows a pattern. Humans encounter a dangerous species. They're cautious at first, then curious, then they find a way to communicate. To cooperate. They've done it with wolves, horses, falcons, elephants, dozens of species. This is what they do. But renders aren't Earth animals, Jiwan protested. They evolved here. Different biology. Different instincts. But similar needs, Summon said. Dubu needs food, shelter, safety. Yun provides those things. In return, Dubu provides protection, companionship. It's a fair exchange. Both benefit, Yuna watched the monitors. Hyun was back inside his cabin now. The renders were settling in around the area, taking up guard positions, creating a perimeter. How long before Galactic Command makes a decision? She asked. Minji checked her timeline. We have 2 weeks left in our observation period. Then they'll decide if Hyun can stay. And if they say no? The message came early in the morning. A red priority flag. Captain Yuna read it and her face went pale. Everyone, briefing room, now. The crew assembled quickly. They knew something was wrong. There's a situation at the southern colony, Yuna said. A large pack of renders is approaching. 15 individuals, moving in coordinated formation. They'll reach the settlement in 6 hours. Can the colonists evacuate? Minji asked. No. They have 300 people. Mostly families, children. The evacuation would take 12 hours minimum. The renders will be there in 6. The room went silent. What about defenses? Bora asked. Standard perimeter barriers, sonic deterrents. They might slow the pack down. But 15 renders working together? They'll break through. It's just a matter of time. D checked his console. Why are they moving together? Renders don't form packs that large. It's against their territorial instincts. Unless something changed, So-min said quietly. Unless they learned to cooperate. Like Dubu and Minho learned. Everyone turned to look at her. You think they learned from watching Hyun? Kyung asked. Maybe. Or maybe they learned from the renders that Hyun turned away. Information spreads. Behaviors spread. If some renders learned that working together brings benefits, others might copy them. Except these renders aren't protecting humans, Jiwan said. They're hunting them. Yuna made a decision. Contact Hyun. Tell him we need his help. Captain, Bora protested. One human with a few bonded renders can't stop 15 wild ones. Maybe not. But Hyun has done impossible things before. We have to try. They found Hyun outside his cabin working on a new fence. Dubu was helping, carrying posts in his massive jaws. When the transport landed, Hyun looked up. He saw their faces and knew something was wrong. Minji explained the situation quickly. 300 colonists, mostly families. 6 hours until the renders arrive. We can't evacuate in time. Hyun was quiet for a long moment. He looked at Dubu, then at Minho and the other renders that had gathered around his territory. They sensed his tension. What do you want me to do? He asked. We need your help. We need you to... Minji paused. We need you to talk to them. To try what you did with the other pack. To give them a choice. That was 6 renders. You're talking about 15. I know. And I had Dubu with me. I had established territory. I had leverage. What leverage do I have at the colony? You have knowledge, experience, you understand them. We don't. Hyun looked at Dubu again. The massive render was watching him. Waiting. Trusting whatever choice he would make. If I help, Hyun said slowly, you have to promise something. What? You follow my instructions exactly. No weapons unless I say. No aggressive actions unless I permit them. You have to trust me completely, even when it seems wrong, even when you're scared. Minji looked at Yuna. The captain had come down personally for this. Yuna nodded. We promise, Minji said. And if this works, you leave Dubu and me alone. No more evacuation orders. No more behavioral assessments. We stay. I can't promise that, Yuna said. But I'll recommend it strongly. Hyun studied her face. Then he nodded. That'll have to be enough. Give me an hour to prepare. They transported Hyun, Dubu, Minho, and 3 other bonded renders to the southern colony. The colonists were terrified when they saw the renders arrive. Parents grabbed their children. People ran for shelters. Everyone calm down, Minji called over the loudspeakers. These renders are with us. They're here to help. It didn't help much. Fear was logical when you saw 5 apex predators walking through your streets. Hyun stood at the colony's edge. The barriers were here. Tall walls with sonic emitters. Beyond them open grassland. And beyond that forest where the pack was approaching. I need supplies, Hyun said. Fresh meat. As much as you have. Large pieces. That's our food storage for the month, a colony administrator protested. Would you rather keep your food or keep your lives? Hyun asked. They brought the meat. Hyun directed them to pile it in specific locations, creating a pattern, a message in a language the renders would understand. Now I need fire. Controlled burns. Small ones. In a circle around the colony perimeter, just enough to create smoke. Fire will attract them, Bora said. Fire will announce us. We'll establish presence. In render communication, smoke means claimed territory. We're telling them this place is occupied. They lit the fires. Smoke rose in thin columns around the settlement. Now we wait, Hyun said. And when they come, nobody moves. Nobody speaks. Let me handle this. What if they attack? Bora had her hand on her weapon. If they attack, Dubu and the others will defend. But only if necessary. Our goal is to avoid fighting. Fighting means people die. Maybe colonists. Maybe renders. Maybe both. We want everyone to walk away. The pack appeared 2 hours early. They moved across the grassland like a single organism. 15 massive predators, coordinated, intelligent, dangerous. They stopped when they saw the smoke. When they smelled the meat. When they saw Hyun standing at the barrier with 5 renders behind him. The pack leader came forward. It was the scarred female they had seen before. She recognized Hyun, recognized Dubu. She made a sound, a question. What are you doing here? Hyun raised his hand slowly. A gesture of peace. You remember me? He said. His voice was calm but carried across the distance. We met before. I gave you meat. I gave you safe passage. You chose peace. The female tilted her head, listening. These people behind me, Hyun gestured to the colony, are my people. This is my territory now. Your pack is strong. I respect that. But this place is protected. You cannot hunt here. One of the other renders in the pack made an aggressive sound. It was younger, eager to fight. It started forward. The scarred female snapped at it. A warning. She was still in command. I know you're hungry, Hyun continued. I know you need food. So I offer you the same choice as before. Here is meat. Take it. It's yours freely. And beyond the hills to the west, there is good hunting. Large herds. No competition. You can establish new territory there. Better territory than this. The female looked at the piled meat, then at the colony. Hundreds of humans. Easy prey if they could break through. But they would have to fight Hyun's renders first, and Hyun himself. And whatever defenses the colony had, even if they won, some would die. Was it worth it? Hyun took a step forward, just one, outside the barrier now, vulnerable. Don't, Minji whispered through the communicator. But Hyun knew what he was doing. He was showing trust, showing he wasn't afraid, showing he believed the female would make the right choice. The female approached him, slowly. The other renders in her pack tensed, ready to attack if their leader was threatened. But Dubu didn't attack. He stayed at Hyun's side, calm, present, showing his own trust. The female stopped a meter from Hyun. She was huge. She could kill him with one swipe. Everyone watching held their breath. Hyun didn't move. He looked into her eyes. 2 apex predators, 2 intelligent beings, trying to understand each other. You're a good leader, Hyun said softly. You keep your pack alive. You make smart choices. I'm giving you a smart choice now. Peace and food or war and risk. Which serves your pack better? The female made a sound, softer than before, thoughtful. Then she turned to her pack. She made a series of sounds, commands, decisions. The pack moved to the meat piles. They began to eat. Not frantically, not aggressively, almost politely. The female looked back at Hyun. She made one more sound. Acknowledgement, maybe, or respect. Then she and her pack took the remaining meat and left. Moving west. Toward the hills. Toward new territory. Toward a choice that kept everyone alive. When they were gone, Hyun's legs almost gave out. Dubu pressed against him. Supporting him, the colony erupted in cheers. People poured out of shelters. Children laughed. Parents cried with relief. Minji ran to Hyun. That was incredible. That was impossible. That was lucky, Hyun said. He was shaking. She could have attacked. She could have decided the risk was worth it. I gambled with everyone's lives, but you won, this time. But Minji, you can't depend on this. You can't assume it will always work. Renders are individuals. They make their own choices. Some will choose peace. Some will choose violence. You have to respect both possibilities, Yuna approached. She had watched everything from the command center. Hyun, Galactic Command needs to see this. They need to understand what you did here. What did I do? Hyun asked. I talked to an intelligent being. I offered a choice. She made the choice that benefited her pack. It's not magic. It's communication. It's more than that, Yuna said. You showed us that humans can make bridges where we only saw walls. That predators can choose cooperation over conflict. That impossible things become possible when someone is brave enough to try. She pulled up a datapad. I'm filing my report now. I'm recommending that you be allowed to stay on your land. I'm recommending that your methods be studied and taught. I'm recommending that humans be recognized as having unique diplomatic capabilities with predator species. I don't want to be famous, Hyun said. I just want to live with Dubu in peace. I know. But what you've done here will change things. It has to. Because today you saved 300 lives by talking instead of fighting, by offering choice instead of violence. That's worth something. The colony administrator approached. He was crying. Thank you, he said. My children are here. My grandchildren. You saved them. How can